Hello, good evening and welcome to Prime Business with me, Pius Kojo Baka. Government is linking the record third quarter growth to its commitment to check spending and raise the revenue required. It is therefore promising to institute measures to help ascertain the situation. There is more in this report.
Ministry of Finance in the statement argued that the growth numbers also showed that government has been able to grow the economy, defying current global challenges and positioning Ghana as one of the most dynamic economies in Africa. It also showed the remarkable performance of the economy during the third quarter of this year. Government is of the view that based on how the economy has performed for the third quarter, Ghana will end the year exceeding the recently revised GDP growth of 4% under the IMF program. It further went ahead to argue that numbers also defy a country that has gone through debt restructuring, which normally grows at modest rate of 1 to 2%. The Ministry of Finance, however, promised that it will continue to implement programs that will help sustain this growth going forward. The Finance Ministry cites programs like the Planting for Food and Jobs, One District, One Factory, and the Ghana Cares Initiative as some of the programs that will ensure that this growth impacts on Ghanaians.
Economist Professor Lord Mensah has advised government not to celebrate yet over the Q3 growth numbers for 2024, arguing the growth recorded is to satisfy the IMF program and not the Ghanaian economy. He's been speaking to me on Business Live.
Again, if you look at the drivers of the growth as indicated by the Statistical Service, clearly it's mining and quarrying that is driving the growth. And you ask yourself how many Ghanaians are getting jobs in this sector. These are things that we have to discuss, because as for the growth numbers, we've been witnessing them, and at a point in time, I touted the Ghanaian economy to be hanging without necessarily trickling down to the ordinary person, day in and day out. But if the growth was to be driven mainly by agri sector, we know that the economic benefit that comes if the agri sector, drives our growth. It has enormous economic benefit. That has to do with, the job market, again, food prices and all those. And if you look at the inflation numbers that has been coming out recently, you could see food is the one that is driving, our inflation numbers. So from what I said, yes, indeed, it's a growth to satisfy the IMF program, but it's not growth for the Ghanaians. But if you're looking at the growth in our lives, myself and you, our day in and day out consumption, clearly you appreciate that it's not growth that we should celebrate that much.
And what more must we do to sustain this momentum and, of course, consolidate the gains made so far as well?
Yeah, so if you look at, the growth on the expenditure side, clearly you could see it's government spending. And if you look at the production side, you can see mining and quarrying driving the growth. And that should tell you that probably the mining and quarrying, that's possibly the exports. That tells you that we are, producing these items to export without necessarily retaining them.
Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund is warning government against being complicit over progress made under the fund program. The IMF in its staff report insists that there are still some serious challenges despite recent economic gains. More from George Yafe.
And if you look at the drivers of the growth as indicated by the
IMF's warning is based on the fact that there are still some structural reforms that needs to be undertaken. These measures, the fund believes, will help strengthen Ghana's public financial management structures to help contain government expenditure. It also wants more attention given to the energy and cocoa sectors. These warnings are coming at a time that the IMF itself has described Ghana's program as satisfactory. It, however, noted that more work still needs to be done in the area of fiscal deficit as well as boosting revenue and checking its expenditure. Additionally, the fund wants managers of the economy to do more when it comes to implementing those reforms that would help fast-track the current economic recovery and put it on a strong footing in the coming months.
Now, President-elect John Dramani Mahama has revealed that he will be pushing for an early engagement with the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank over plans to renegotiate current programs with the country's development partners. He hinted that the discussions will be guided by proposals to reset the economy. The president-elect disclosed this during a meeting with the UN resident coordinator here in Accra.
Looking at the existing programs, we need to tweak them to meet the realities of today to do so. I believe we've had discussions with the World Bank and the IMF already, and we look to an early engagement so that we can continue to be on the same wavelength. Of course, in the campaign, several, promises were made, and we need to look at what the reality is in terms of sitting together and seeing what the way forward is. Of course, one of our main concerns, and I think we've expressed it to you several times, is the issue of the humps in the debt repayments, and it's something we need to see how we can smooth them so that we don't default again. That would be more catastrophic than this current default.
Meanwhile, Associate Professor of Finance at Andrews University, Williams Prepra, believes there is still room for the incoming administration to renegotiate the current proposals with the IMF. He spoke earlier on the marketplace.
Tax policies that may have to affect the current tax strategy of the fund. The fund is saying that we should increase our tax rates. This current government campaign on cancellation of some taxes. I know that what the current government, the incoming government will be doing is be broadening the tax net, and they're also going to reduce or cancel some taxes. So this must be aligned in that policy. A major one is expenditure reduction. That I am expecting that this government is going to propose that give us the room to reduce our expenditure. It's going to cut the ministers from 120 to 60, which is going to have a major tax expenditure savings. On the issue of how he's going to realign some of the ministries, which may lead to some job losses, and they may have to create room for that. And then also on their policy of 24-hour economy, it must find its way into the IMF program, and so that it may be able to get support from bilateral, multilateral donors to make sure that this policy works. Indeed, if the 24-hour economy really becomes successful, it's going to propel production, and it's going to impact, as from their policy, they talked about exports. It's going to lead to export, which is going to bring in more foreign inflows and going to strengthen our currency. So these are some of the strategies that must find its way into the IMF document. So this is the reason why a renegotiation is more needed at this time.
And we want to stay all longer on issues that has to do with the economy because Ghana is still classified as a high debt distressed country. This tag could be removed after 2028. This is despite the significant progress by government in restructuring its debt-owed creditors. George Yafe has the rest of the story.
Was captured in the latest report issued by the IMF about Ghana's performance under the fund program. It was this report that was submitted to the IMF board that led to some $360 million released to Ghana after it passed the test review earlier this year. It was the expectation that this classification will be removed very soon, as government had announced that it was about 90% through when it comes to restructuring the debt owed both the domestic and the external creditors. But the IMF, in the report on Ghana, argues that the country still has this tag due to the near-term breach of the debt sustainability analysis threshold. However, the fund has revealed that Ghana will reach that moderate risk of debt distress by 2028, when at that time, all those targets set by the fund has been met when it comes to restructuring its debt. It is not clear for now how this classification would impact on the country's finances going forward and the cost of any fresh borrowings.
Away from economic matters, Melcom Limited, Ghana's largest and most popular retail department store chain, is now opened at the Accra Mall, bringing one of the store's biggest and best-stocked outlets to residents in the cluster of communities on the west side of Accra. The retail giant commences trading as an anchor tenant at Accra Mall today. Here's the Group General Manager, Francis Sam.
As you know, Malcolm wants to create a one-stop shopping experience where Ghanaians can shop with all their needs at one location. And this is one additional store that we are opening today. We have one more to open in Achimota Mall before the year ends. And the intent is to bring the shopping experience to all Ghanaians wherever they are. 20% is to introduce the shop to all people that are shopping this weekend, and so that they have something to experience and more money in their pockets when they are shopping. Well, Malcolm is, as you know, where Ghana shops. So we are giving you more reasons why you should come and shop at Malcolm and enjoy the shopping experience, enjoy the ambience, enjoy our new branding, and enjoy all the products that we are bringing to market. Initially, Malcolm has been out of the mall environment. Our first entry into the mall was at West Hills Mall. And we heard from customers, and there was a need to fulfill the wishes of the customers by entering more malls. So Malcolm decided to embark on this new initiative. Yes, as you know, Malcolm runs monthly promotions all year round. The intent is to give customers reasons to shop and more money in their pockets when they are shopping. What Malcolm is doing is driving more promotions during this holiday season so that we can all have something more to buy during the holiday season.
The Registrar of Companies, Jemima Owari, has advised banks and financial institutions not to do business with companies and non-governmental organizations whose certificates do not bear the requisite updated certificates required to demonstrate compliance with its new act. The Companies Act 2019 has introduced updated provisions aimed at improving business regulatory compliance in Ghana. Speaking at a stakeholder engagement here in Accra, Registrar of Companies, Jemima Owari, cautioned financial institutions to desist from doing business with any entity that does not show the requisite certificate from the Registrar of Companies.
Established under the Companies Act 2019, Act 992, the Office of the Registrar of Companies is tasked with the registration of businesses and providing advisory services to ensure compliance with regulatory standards. At the stakeholder engagement, the Registrar of Companies, Jemima Owari, called on businesses to update their records promptly.
All businesses need to change the suffixes at the end of their names to make sure that as an office we're able to identify and distinguish the different types of companies that are registered with us. For a company limited by shares, you've been using limited with L-I-M-I-T-E-D at the end of your name. You have to ensure you change it to either LTD or limited company. For companies limited by guarantees such as churches, associations, clubs, they normally have foundation or organization at the end of their names. You need to change the N to be LBG or limited by guarantee. For publicly listed companies currently listed on the stock exchange that still have limited at the end of their names, you have to change it to PLC or publicly listed companies.
The registrar emphasized that maintaining up-to-date records is essential for businesses to remain in good standing and comply with the corporate governance standards.
For business names, it's over 500,000. But for companies, I think is a sample of about 5,000. If you have not filed your annual returns by the end of this year, we will put out a notice and find out whether you are still doing business. That process will run up to about 7 months. Those whose names are going to go off are those who we sent information to the beginning of the year, and so we are at the end of the year now. So if by the end of this year you haven't complied, that means you are not doing business. And when we take it off, within the next 12 years, you cannot have your name used by anybody until you go to court to have it reinstated. After 12 years, it falls in the public domain and everybody can use it. The import of this is when your name is off the register, we will put it in the dailies. We'll also put it in our company's bulletin. Anybody given a contract to such a person, you do so at your own risk.
The Office of the Registrar of Companies continues to engage stakeholders to foster partnerships that will enhance corporate governance and drive sustainable business practices across the country.
The Ghana Stock Exchange has set next year as the deadline to complete moves to link stockbrokers in Ghana to other African capital markets. The move is expected to facilitate cross-border trading as well as give opportunity to Ghanaian investors to trade on other markets in Africa. Managing Director of the Ghana Stock Exchange, Abina Moa, has been explaining this to Joy Business in an interview.
These are all for us very important tools to help companies raise capital as well as investors invest. On the global scale, as I said, the exchange itself is signing up to additional digital platforms that will help us avail investing opportunities across all of West Africa, all across all of Africa to Ghanaians that want to invest. There's nothing that stops a Ghanaian on these platforms from buying some shares in companies that are listed in Nigeria or Egypt or Johannesburg or Kenya, and the same for Kenyans, South Africans, Moroccans who want to invest on the Ghana Stock Exchange. So we are partners, or we are partnering with colleague stock exchanges. In fact, we've created and invested in some of these digital platforms, and as I said, hopefully by the end of next year, the stockbrokers will be linked to the program, and anyone who chooses a stockbroker that's participating in that program can buy shares across the market.
Remember, you're still watching Prime Business. Amanano Rural Bank in the Ashanti region is prioritizing support for the agricultural sector in implementing its 2025 business strategic plans. The bank says it is dedicated to empowering women in the agricultural sector, specifically in promoting their welfare and contributing positively to the community. Here's more from Emmanuel Bright-Kweku.
This year's meeting served as a vital platform for stakeholders to engage in meaningful discussions and foster collaboration aimed at enhancing community development. With 7 branches across the Ashanti region, Amanono Rural Bank is committed to contributing positively to the local economy and the well-being of its residents. Acting Chief Executive Officer of the bank, Daniel Bediako, expressed optimism about the future, highlighting how the bank has transformed challenges into opportunities since he assumed leadership.
A whole lot of challenges, but if you look at the progress we have made, we have been able to turn the challenges into the opportunities. When they took over, and also took over as acting CEO, we saw so many opportunities. Staff motivation, we took care of it. We were able to grant good and quality loans. We were able to do prudential investment. And these measures has resulted into a good result of the bank. If you go to our branches, the branding works that we carried out, it has motivated and attracted so many customers. Now, Amanono Rural Bank has become attractive.
The bank is also committed to putting in the necessary efforts to mobilize shares effectively, aiming to enhance its capitalization in conformity with the Bank of Ghana's requirements. Timely dividend payment to shareholders and customers have been a challenge for the bank. However, Mr. Bediako noted the importance of seeking approval from the Bank of Ghana before processing such payments to shareholders.
Yeah, this year, as the board chair stated during the reading of her report, we have written to the Bank of Ghana. These days, when you want to pay dividends, the Bank of Ghana has to give you approval. And so the dividend payment is subject to Bank of Ghana approval. When they give us approval, you pay dividend.
The Amanono Rural Bank has meanwhile introduced digital banking features aimed at enhancing the experience of shareholders and customers.
Yes, in the next year, 2025, Amanono Rural Bank, in terms of our strategic direction, 2025, we want to also introduce digital channels in our banking transactions, mobile app, ATM, USSD code, and other digital channels that will enhance our banking activities.
David Opokus reports for Joy News.
Let's now take some international business news.